Hey everybody, I am Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and today we get to talk about the future of Nintendo. That is, the future of Nintendo after Nintendo Switch. So Tatsumi Kimishima has been doing rounds of interviews all throughout Japan. Takahashi himself has also been doing some interviews in the United States, and there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out today. And I plan to do a summary video on some of the other bits that they're talking about, mostly with Switch and how many units they expect to sell and all that jazz. But here I have information on Nintendo's next system after Switch, so let's talk about it, even though this is the way too early conversation about what's after Switch. So Tatsumi, this comes from Go Nintendo, by the way. They have a bullet point breakdown of some things he said. Japanese does not translate directly to English, so this is paraphrasing. But I really want to get into this because it's important. For Nintendo's next system after Nintendo Switch, Nintendo has started thinking about it. This is pretty typical. Nintendo always does this. Once they release the current platform, they already start forming ideas for the next platform. That is the norm. It says, however, consumer preferences always change and technology also continues to evolve. Example, AI has been used more often, such as the AI smart speaker. I'll give you an example. Hey Google, tell me a joke.
This might make you laugh. Which horse runs the city? The mayor, of course.
Just to give you an example of some AI that Nintendo's referring to. Nintendo has to also keep thinking about whether to include such technology, like AI, until the very end, until they're ready to release the product. If Nintendo has already decided right now on how the next game console would be like, they would no longer be able to take action. They're talking about with things like AI or any other technologies that come up in the future. It's one of those things where they might have some ideas for the platform, but until they get to conceptualizing and building it and closer to release, they're not going to finalize any details. Like maybe Nintendo goes all in on VR. Maybe Nintendo has an AI-type device that interacts with you with voice commands. Kind of like Kinect sort of does with Xbox One, but in more of a Google Home, like I just demonstrated to you guys, or Amazon, whatever, Alexa, the Alexa thing from Amazon. So we'll see. And it says here that Nintendo needs to think about the release timing in a flexible way. What that means to me is that Nintendo, if you actually look at the history of Nintendo game consoles, they've typically had 5 to 6 year cycles. More of the cycles are 5 years than 6. And when you consider that, Nintendo has to obviously consider, all right, Switch came out in March of this year. 5 years from this year is 2022. Is it time to release a new platform at the end of that year? Should they be willing to release it in 2023 or 2024, 2025, 2026? Or are they thinking maybe we should get that platform out sooner, by 2020? I think the flexible nature they have to consider for their release timing of the next platform has to do with the ever-evolving market, right? We have PlayStation 4 coming out with the PlayStation 4 Pro. You have even the Nintendo 3DS coming out with the new Nintendo 3DS or the new Nintendo 2DS XL versions. You have to consider things like the Xbox One X and the iterative nature that technology is heading in, and it has been, for a long time. PC parts, I think Intel launched 4 brand new architectures this year that are not compatible with each other whatsoever for CPUs, just crazy. And then we had the Ryzen launch, which is, and then you had Threadripper, which is built on the same stuff as Ryzen, but needs its own types of motherboards and stuff like that, its own chipsets. You got the AMD Vegas, which don't actually, they're just as compatible with all motherboards as the new, 1070, 1050, 1050 Ti, 1060, 1060 Ti, 1070, 1070 Ti, 1080, 1080 Ti, and whatever. Plus you have phones. They're always having these yearly iterations for the most part. That's just the way technology has been trending, and Nintendo's paying attention to this, and I think this is a realization for them, and this is not in anything Tatsumi Kimishima said, but they need to be willing to release a product sooner than maybe it feels like they should, right? Say Switch moves 20 million units next year. Say in year 3 it moves 25 million units. Should they really be considering in year 4 releasing another platform? Maybe. There is something to be said about maintaining your momentum, right? You sell those 25, whatever, the 15 million units or so this year, the 20 million next fiscal year, the 25 the next year after that, and then you're like, oh, hey, look, we have all this momentum. Now's the time to launch a product when you have momentum, versus kind of doing what they did with Wii and Wii U, where momentum died out and then they brought a product to market. It's a complete opposite thinking of that. If you think about it, PlayStation 3, despite being on the market for 7 or 8 years, it ended with a bang, right? Its final year before PlayStation 4 released was one of the best sales years for PlayStation 3. And Nintendo might be looking at that as well and be like, hey, look, if we're going to have a new Nintendo Switch, if we're going to have a Switch XL or a Switch Pro, or if we're going to continue the Switch line at all, we should get it out faster rather than later. We should get it out, in a few years rather than waiting 5 or 6 typically. And this assumes that they even stick with the Switch route. Nintendo's always thinking about where they could take things next. And maybe next is, everyone's talking about whether they should make a Switch Mini or a Switch XL or use a Tegra X2 and all this stuff. What about adding AI into the picture? How would you guys feel like if I said, hey, Switch, play me that show I like on Netflix? Or, hey, Switch, start up Breath of the Wild under Profile NP Nate. Like, wouldn't it be great if our devices were all kind of smart like that? It could get confusing, obviously, when you're like, I'm not going to say it because I don't want my AI thing to go off, but hey, Yahoo, as an example, or hey, Alexa, you start having all these different, it sounds like you're just talking to yourself, but that's the way technology is heading in. Heck, there's, on the dang Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, there's a dedicated Bixby button. I guess it was around last generation as well. Just really, really weird to me. There's a dedicated smart device button that Bixby really isn't that great in comparison to just Google Assistant, but it is what it is. I'm very interested to see what the future of Nintendo is going to be. Obviously, this is the way too early trying to figure out what Nintendo's going to do, but Nintendo's already thinking about it. They're publicizing they're thinking about it. They publicized, at least in this case, that they've looked at AI technology, such as smart devices and these little home devices, that example I just showed you with earlier when I told Google to tell me a joke. So it's interesting seeing where technology is going and what Nintendo's got in store for next. Right now, living in the present, Switch is a smash hit, and I can't wait to see what's in store for 2018. Anyways, folks, I am Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one.